Hello, my artsy friends, and welcome back. It is the 13th day of the Ugly Art Club's 5-minute challenge, and the prompt for today is mismatch. So I've been spreading out the posting of these full tutorials just to make it so that it lasts a little bit longer and it's not so much information crammed right into those 2 weeks. So for this prompt, I decided for mismatch, I wanted to have like two competing spreads, but in one spread. So that's kind of confusing to say, but you'll see what I'm talking about here. So I started out with just a piece of artist tape it kind of slants across this page. I was almost thinking like a battle between the two. I don't know. I wasn't quite as clear with this prompt right off the bat like I am with some of the others. So I think it just goes to prove that not every prompt is going to completely resonate with you. And you just kind of have to take the little bit of inspiration that you may have from it and just run with it. See where it takes you. It's okay if not every page ends up being your favorite. If sometimes you either want to redo it or, not include it in your final journal, whatever you're going to do. I like how this one turns out, but I did not know quite at the beginning what I intended to do. So I'm starting out with a little bit of stenciling here. I am using a stencil brush. I just recently started to use these, some with my stencil instead of all the time a sponge. And I'm liking the way that they're working. I will say that the paint kind of gets stuck all up in the bristles and it's not the easiest to clean out, but I've started to use Murphy's oil soap on any of my brushes that are really a pain to get out. So instead of like throwing them away or always getting new ones, sometimes once I get like a little jar full of brushes that are too hardened to clean off just with water, I'll put them in a little jar and fill it with Murphy's oil soap and overnight and then kind of rinse them out in my hand and the brushes come out better than before. I mean, almost brand new like. So definitely recommend that. I will link that down below in the description along with every other supply that I'm using. If I know where it's from, I'm going to link that there for you guys. So if you have any questions, just go ahead and check that out down below. So I got a little bit carried away when I was doing my stencil and kind of forgot that I was supposed to be working on like one side of the spread, but that's okay. I actually like the idea then of the two spreads kind of combining a little bit so that they marry and blend with each other, but there's still that kind of mismatch vibe. So along with kind of different patterns that I'm using, I wanted to use different colors on the left and the right side, just helping to kind of go with that prompt even a little bit more. I'm playing around with what colors I'm using. I'm doing a little bit of color mixing to get some vibrant greens going on. And you can just tell overall in this video that I'm working a little bit slower. When I'm not as sure what I'm going to do, how the prompt inspires me, I'm not making decisions quite as fast. So it's okay if you're a little bit unsure. Not every prompt that you're going to do, not every journal page that you do is going to come super natural and easy. So I think over time, the more that we're creating, the more that we're taking that inspiration and just running with it, the more comfortable that we'll be and the better we'll be about making those quicker, fast decisions where we're not overthinking quite as much. So I'm at a bit of a loss of what to do. So I want to bring in some texture here to this spread and get a little bit more intrigue and interest going on, because even though I have a couple different colors going on, I have different patterns, it's all feeling a bit bland to me right now. It's feeling very flat. And so one of the surefire ways that I like to fix that is to bring in some different textiles. So I have a few different fabrics here that kind of go with both the colors that I am working on. and just seeing how I can put those together in a way that's really cohesive overall. Even though the prompt is mismatch, I do want this spread to still feel cohesive when I am done. So now I'm going to do a few elements that kind of bring the left and the right side together. So I have my China marker here, and I'm just doing some little marks on both sides, bringing in that pencil, doing some scribbles. So I am at the end of those 5 minutes, but I am not done yet. So I'm going to keep working. Still trying to bring this together in a way that I'm going to be happy with in the end. So if you're working on a challenge that is timed like this, or you're trying to get yourself to make faster decisions, that's all well and good, but it's also okay to break the rules a little bit and go over that time. In the end, nobody is sitting over you, watching you, judging you, making sure you stick concisely to that time. So those are just prompts. They're meant as guides. It's not something that you have to take too seriously. So I'm taking off that tape, and I like the clean lines that it gives, but I also like, if you can see kind of in the bottom middle, how that orange spilled over to the green side. So it's like they're kind of coming together just a little bit. I'm ripping this fabric up, fraying the edges a bit more, and I want to have a spot now where I'm going to put my little prompt tab, the prompt cut out, and to make it kind of stand out from the rest of the page a little bit more. Bringing in some of those layers that can act as like a nice background for that label, so it stands out nicely. I'm gonna rip the edges just a little bit to make it feel like it fits in with this spread a little bit nicer. And just to get that label to stick out even more from the background, I want to bring in some black gesso around the edges. I'm just doing that with my finger. I find myself working with my finger as a tool more when I am trying to work faster and in a time crunch instead of searching for a brush. I also like the various textures that you can do by just using your finger instead of a brush, where a lot of times you're going to get those brush strokes. Bringing in a few final art marks that are going to bring both of these sides together, and going to then find a way to attach that label to the page. A lot of times I would use stitching, but since I've already gone over the time, I'm just going to use something quicker and just use my small stapler and attach that to the page. I also like that the staples bring in another element and another texture onto the page. So even though this one didn't come as naturally as some of the others, I do like the way that it turned out. I think it's fun. I think it's a fun experimentation for me, something a little bit different than what I would normally do. Okay, so now I'm going to work on that second spread that goes along with the first one, and this is just something extra that I'm doing to make a full cohesive spread. And I knew, since I took more time on that first one, I just wanted something simple, something that was going to make all of this feel really cohesive instead of two separate units. This second spread is actually going to be, I think, what brings this whole thing together. So I'm using that leftover paint that's still on my palette from both colors, and then I'm using one sponge and making some sponge marks here in just a repetitive pattern. And by using that same sponge but two completely different colors, you get both of those colors on the sponge at the same time and create some really fun, interesting, unique colors and patterns going on the page. I'm also bringing in some white gesso so that not every sponge mark is fully saturated, just bringing in something a little bit different. Now, to echo some of that messiness on the first page, I'm bringing my pencil scribbles in, and also some of those art marks that I did with that black China marker. Again, this is just going to make it feel very cohesive overall, bringing in some of those elements from the first page to the second page. So making things cohesive does not always mean that it has to be perfectly symmetrical and doing the exact same thing on both sides. Sometimes it just means bringing in one little element onto both sides. Now, something just felt like it was missing. It wasn't dynamic enough sticking out. So last up, I'm going to take that same China marker and go around the edge a little bit. And I'm not going to go around the whole edge. I still want this to feel like those two sides are in contrast with one another. So I'm just going around the edge of that green side. And I think it just brings a nice dynamic touch. And same thing, I wasn't going to do it on the bottom spread, but I think it just needs it to kind of balance it out. So I'm not going to do it on the exact same edges as the first one. I'm going to do it on the opposite edges. And then it just goes along with that diagonal left and right side that I did on the top. And it just echoes that a little bit. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this and the creative problem solving along the way when maybe you aren't initially like totally inspired by the idea. So I will see you guys next time and have a good one.